Hebrews, Hebrews. This is Prophets of Awakening. It's our non-Messianic conversation night. The 7th of July, 2023. We'll be dealing with, like I was saying before, uh, Prophets of Awakening, and we'll be dealing with all about Sir Francis Bacon. It's a lot of information surrounding this guy, and I've been talking about him, but I'm gonna go all the way in. I'm gonna start out tonight with a little something, but I'm gonna go into it on this Sabbath class, the evening and the morning Sabbath class. So let everybody know you can go to our YouTube channel, which is Prophets of Awakening, and check out our videos. We got a lot of videos, a lot of information, and these videos will connect dots for you, lead you into the truth of the Holy Scriptures. And if you like what you're hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And for those that feel the need to support the channel, you can go to our PayPal running across the bottom of the screen and Cash App. So with that being said, I want to say shalom and welcome to Prophets of Awakening, and welcome to our non-Messianic conversation. We're going to do our normal, which is a moment of silence or silent prayer. We're going to read the Psalms, do some current events, and a little need to know information. Then we open it up for comments, questions, dialogue, and then we go into our topic. Like I said before, it's all about Sir Francis Bacon. We want to shine a light on him. Okay, so with that being said, this moment of silence is for the Lord of hosts and our Creator, Yahweh, and all that they're doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance in these last days, our return to our homeland. O Lord, I pray unto the Lord, my God, when we make our confessions, O Lord, the great and dreadful God, keeping covenant and mercy to them that love thee and to them that keep thy commandments. O Lord, righteousness belongs unto thee, but unto us a confusion of face, as it is this day to the men of Judah, to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all the countries where thou hast driven us because of our trespass, that we have trespassed against thee. O Lord, hear this prayer and cause thy face to shine upon thy sanctuary and thy people and for your sake. O Lord, open your eyes and incline thy ears to hear and behold our condition. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, hearken and do, and defer not for thy own sake. For thy people and your land need you desperately at this hour. Peace be unto you. Okay. So with that being said, do some more read a song right quick. Okay. 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 It says I'm in Psalm 67. It's let all the people praise thee. It's Legenda, like I said that name. He's a chief musician, one of David's chief musicians. God be merciful on us and bless us and cause his name, his face to shine upon us. Selah, that thy way may be known unto the earth, upon the earth, thy saving help among all nations. Let the people praise thee, O God, and let all the people praise thee. O let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for thou shalt judge the people righteously and govern the nations upon the earth. Selah. Let all the people praise thee, O God, and let all the people praise thee. Then shall the earth yield her increase, and God, even our own God, shall bless us. God shall bless us, and all the ends of the earth shall fear him. So that's Psalm 67. Let all the people praise thee. Okay, so anybody have comments on that? says, verse 1 says, God be merciful unto us and bless us and cause their face to shine upon us. So we see that a lot in the scripture. And a lot of people don't really know what it means, but it just means that when he turn, when he turned to us, when he with us, and because his countenance, he turned towards us, his face is shining on us. He's with us and blessing us, but he also can turn his face away from us, where it don't shine on us and not focus on us. Okay. So with that being said, just current events. Okay. Okay.
Welcome to Asian Quick Take. I'm Jacob. Get ready for an in-depth analysis of the latest news and developments in global affairs, international relations, and technology. The global oil industry is currently in a state of turmoil. On July 5th, OPEC held a seminar in Vienna to which the US and UK mainstream media were denied access for the second time. OPEC Secretary General Haitham Geis said, "This is our place and we have decided to implement our media strategy in this way." The seminar is likely to have focused on the oil industry, the energy outlook and issues related to the US crude supply strategy and oil currencies, which are highly sensitive to the US dollar and its economy. The 23 members of OPEC Plus are moving towards abandoning the petrodollar agreement, which would have a significant impact on the dollar's hegemonic status. Saudi Arabia is reducing oil supplies to the US and may drastically cut oil exports, leading to a rise in US inflation. To combat 9.1% hyperinflation, the US government sold 180 million barrels of oil, depleting the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to its lowest level since 1983. As of June 30th, the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve has been near depletion levels for 13 consecutive weeks. On June 30th, the U.S. Department of Energy announced the purchase of 3.2 million barrels of oil to replenish the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and the White House plans to purchase at least 12 million barrels of crude oil this year. Oil-producing countries, including Saudi Arabia, believe that Brent oil prices hovering below $75 are an attempt by the U.S. to generate more profits by suppressing international oil prices. According to the International Monetary Fund, Saudi Arabia's fiscal break-even point for crude oil is $80 per barrel. The current level of $75 per barrel could result in export deficits for oil-producing countries like Saudi Arabia. Despite differing economic goals between the US and oil-producing countries, these producers have been passive in their actions due to the petrodollar agreement and the hegemonic position of the US dollar. Since last October, OPEC Plus oil producers have voluntarily cut production 3 times. Saudi Arabia announced an additional 1 million barrels per day production cut, bringing Saudi production to 9 million barrels per day, the lowest level since 2011. Saudi Arabia is also redirecting crude oil shipments east of the Suez Canal, significantly reducing supplies to the US and Europe. However, due to the 40-day shipping time from Saudi Arabia to the US, the situation of US oil reserves was not favorable as of the fiscal year's last day. Saudi Arabia has extended the overall OPEC Plus production cut target until December 31, 2024, aligning it with the delay in the US debt ceiling. This extension appears to be a counterattack against the impact the US is bringing to commodities, like oil, in the course of its global export deficit. The decision to block US and UK mainstream media from the July meeting for the second time is also likely driven by the ongoing market conflict. Oil-producing countries have been reluctant to reveal more details related to the oil market. Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman has repeatedly warned that speculators will experience the consequences of shorting OPEC oil prices and should proceed with caution. This comment appears to directly reference the US economy. Leaked Pentagon documents reportedly indicate that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has previously issued direct threats to the United States, suggesting that decisions related to oil production would bring economic disaster to the country. For years, Saudi Arabia has been a major supplier of low-priced oil to the US economy, making it a dominant power and enforcer of the petrodollar deal. However, the Saudis have now created a series of obstacles, indicating a significant shift in their stance towards the US economic system. The global oil currency system is undergoing a major reshaping as the US continues to weaponize the dollar.
Okay, anybody got any comments on that? Yeah, so we see that they are, okay.
Was this meeting held on July 5th?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, just happened. Yeah. But you notice that when they first started it, that they're keeping news media out, the Western media and Americans out of the conversation. Everything that's going on is you know, they're plotting against America. So they don't want them involved in what they're doing is getting away from the whole West and the system that they created. Like you just said, they see where they're going and they done weaponize the dollar, and they steady falling as they steady trying to use the dollar to keep themselves afloat and act as if you know, the whole world is not against them. And it's just making the situation worse. The more they do, more and more people distancing themselves from them. And like I said, you can see what they're doing. They saw on the bottom of under the US. And they're making sure when they do it, it ain't gonna be no coming back. Okay. And we saw where France is in total chaos.
Tired of losing money in the stock market? Have you followed a hot?
This video right here is about got some little issues going on down here with this weather.
The Dutch government has reportedly collapsed. Deep divisions over migration policy reform have put an end to Prime Minister Mark Rutte's four-party coalition.
And all over the immigration policies that are unfolding inside of the Netherlands. But so much is happening in just the last couple of weeks. I mean, look at France. France, the protests and riots that spread there, went to Switzerland, they went to Berlin, 45,000 officers on the ground, $1.5 billion in damage. I'm sure some would say they're mostly peaceful protests, but look at what's going on in France, in Netherlands. You look at record high inflation in locations such as Argentina and Turkey with over 100% inflation. Look at what's going on, right? You really start to connect the dots here, and what are you starting to see? You're seeing an uncertain world. I believe what we're going to start to see over the next couple of years, are going to be uncertain chain of events that many would never be able to predict. And some of those are going to be record high food costs, record high inflation, record high housing costs. Not mainly rental costs. I believe rental costs are actually going to go down because a lot of property owners are going to be desperate to generate revenue during uncertain times. A lot of people are going to start listing their homes for rent. But housing costs in terms of property insurance, property taxes, utility bills, all of these things are going to continue to likely climb. But look at what's happening. Look at what's going on in the Netherlands. The Dutch government has collapsed because of differences between the coalition parties over asylum policies. According to the media reports, the four parties were unable to find an agreement in the crisis talks chaired by Prime Minister Mark Rutte, right? Well, look at this. This is what the dispute was about. So what was the dispute about? The leader in the center party, the largest four-party coalition, had wanted to tighten curbs on reuniting families of asylum seekers. Following a scandal last year about overcrowded asylum centers, he called for the number of relatives of war refugees allowed in the Netherlands to be capped at 200 per month, and it had threatened to topple the government if the measure did not pass. Two junior partners, including the Christian Unie, a Christian Democratic Party that draws its main support from the staunchly Protestant Bible Belt in the central Netherlands, was staunchly opposed to the proposal. The four parties had held a crisis talk on Wednesday and Thursday, as well as a bid to save the shaky government, which only took office in January 2022. The asylum applications in the Netherlands jumped a third last year to more than 46,000. And the government had projected they could increase to more than 70,000 this year, which would be the previous highs of 2015. This is a breaking story that will soon be updated. So look at that. All the people that came into France, all the people that are relocating worldwide, we're going to continue. We're going to continue to see more uncertainty, and I believe more crime, and we're going to see more of these more civil unrest, especially here in America. Now, many people thought we saw, the height of it a couple of years ago. I don't think so. I personally believe that we're probably going to be stepping into more of those situations in the near future. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't the case. But when you look at what's going on here, like in the Netherlands, I mean, when you're talking about food, when you're talking about housing costs, when you're talking about just feeding yourself, I mean, this is going to be a challenge. They want to close 3,000 farms, and they're the second largest food producer in the world. The second largest food producer in the world. So many people ask me, hey, John, what do you think is going to happen in the future? I just look at the fundamentals. Look at what's happening. If you're in America right now, and you saw what happened in California, the floods, I mean, they produced roughly half of the food supply, half of the fruits and vegetables in America, and they lost a lot of their food due to those floods. You look at the carbon pipelines, 2,000 miles throughout Nebraska and South Dakota, North Dakota. I mean, some of the most fertile farmland that is no longer going to be usable. And you look at that, you couple everything in with what's going on with this clean energy transition. What are we going to start seeing here? Increased costs for farmers, increased costs for food, reduced available food, and increased costs, because there's going to be just as much demand for a reduced amount of supply. Obviously, prices are going to continue to go up. But when you couple that, what's going on in the Netherlands, you're going to have this huge problem that I believe is about to unfold here worldwide. Now, over the last couple of years, many people thought, hey, this booming economy is just going to continue. But if you really just kind of pull back and you're looking around the world and you're saying, okay, Sri Lanka collapsed a couple months ago. Many people already forgot about that. You're starting to look at, the France, that whole situation. It's almost old news, and that was a couple days ago. You're looking at Netherlands right now. You're starting to look at, some of these bank situations, regional banks in America. They've had multiple regional banks collapse. You have all these random situations that have happened in such a short period of time. But the problem is that we all get such crazy stories and such breaking news every 6 hours that it's hard to remember, for most people, what they did last weekend, let alone what just happened yesterday. And so what's going to happen next? We're going to see more of this. We're going to see more of this, and people are going to be so jaded by all these big stories that many people are just going to, this is going to become normal. This is going to be the new normal. And so what are smart and savvy entrepreneurs and investors doing right now? It's a big question.
Okay. Any comment on that? Yeah, pretty much speak for itself. Like I said, you see this everything going to the dollar. And then people keep saying, 10 years from now, 2 years from now, no, I don't see that. It's happening so fast. Okay. Here goes some need to know information.
is under major alert here today as we have sweeping across the nation. Take a look here at this.
This in America.
The wildfire smoke from Canada, those fires are still going on here. And we have massive, massive heat index and heat alert in the southern U.S. here. Also, the power grid failing here yet again in dozens of states. Take a look at this.
To the dangerous conditions across much of the country. In the south, it's the oppressive heat. And in the Midwest, smoke from those Canadian wildfires causing trouble again. Alex Perez has the very latest from Chicago for us this morning. Alex, good morning to you. Hey, good morning. You can see some of that haze is still blanketing the skyline here behind me. Now, Chicago, most of the day yesterday, had the worst air quality in the world, and we're not in the clear just yet. Now, this is what Chicago looked like Tuesday, a blurry haze of smoke making the entire metro area smell much like a fire pit. Chicago's air listed in the unhealthy category, meaning it could be harmful for some, especially those with respiratory issues. The conditions prompted Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson to issue a statement warning people to avoid strenuous activities and limit their time outdoors. Parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and even as far as North Carolina, all also impacted. This, of course, all stemming from those ongoing wildfires in Canada that just a couple of weeks ago created air quality problems in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. New York City's sky glowing orange at one point. And now a lakefront breeze here in Chicago is expected to clear the air for a bit, but some of this smoke will linger, and officials in New York are preparing for possibly more smoke there later this week.
Let me know where you are down below in the comments. Our viewers can read through the comments. I know I've seen in our area, in a message board that I'm on Facebook, complaining they could go out in the area and it smelled like fire. It smelled like fire, and people weren't even aware of what was going on. Yeah, so this kind of gives you an idea here that the fires aren't anywhere close. I mean, we're not really close to Canada per se, but people aren't even aware of this, and people are asking, hey, why does it smell like fire outside? Yeah, so you can let me know your thoughts here. And this has been going on for weeks now, and they're saying it could be quite some time until they can get these fires under control. And some, I mean, you can even see it on the news. They're saying don't go outside at all. For some people, I mean, you can let me know your thoughts here, but they're saying if you have any asthma, respiratory issues, or even just in general, don't go outside if you don't have to. I mean, of course, everybody's kind of got a different opinion here on this, but you can let me know your thoughts here in the comments. Also, the South really dealing with a lot of heat, not really just in the South, but the South particularly dealing with 100-degree heat in a lot of areas. In addition to this, we're seeing a lot of dangerous conditions for swimming, as even a Florida beach took the life of a former NFL quarterback here today, which is absolutely crazy. Take a look here at this.
Tonight, the famous picturesque shores of Panama City Beach, Florida, now the deadliest beach in the nation after 3 more tourists died over the weekend, raising the death toll to 7 so far this year.
With the influx of people and having a roving patrol, these things can happen.
A popular destination for tourists from all over the world, these beaches also have prevalent dangerous rip currents that can quickly turn summertime fun into tragedy.
It's unfortunate, and our lifeguards are doing everything they can. They are very diligent. We work very hard.
Rip currents are strong and narrow streams of water that can suck swimmers out to sea, making it extremely difficult and exhausting to swim directly back to land. According to the National Weather Service, so far this year, there's already been 55 deaths in the surf zones off U.S. shores due to rip currents. Authorities reminding beachgoers of the dangers in the water, especially as the weather heats up and less experienced swimmers jump in.
We estimate rip currents lead to about 100 drownings per year in the U.S., so by far and away the #1 safety risk at the beach.
And he says the prevalence of sandbars off Florida's Gulf Coast can lead to strong and treacherous currents. So what are you supposed to do if you get caught in a rip current?
What you don't want to do is swim straight back to shore against the current, because you're just going to tire yourself out.
For those heading to the beach this summer.
Yeah, so you can see these rip tides are happening, well, you know, over 100 deaths per year at all different types of beaches here in the United States. That one beach alone has already had 7 here this year. So you got to be careful, because a lot of more people going to the beaches here with the heat, and it's pretty concerning. You got to remember here that if they got red flags, you probably shouldn't be going out in the ocean. But yeah, apparently people just aren't really that good at listening. Yeah, you can let me know your thoughts here in the comments. We're also seeing power grid failures here yet again. Yeah, you can see here triple-digit heat prompts concerns about state's power grid and possible roadway damage in Houston, Texas, a lot of areas in Texas. We're also seeing this in several different areas, but also you can see this major headline here: a grid collapse would make a heat wave far deadlier, and we are seeing types of grid collapses here in the U.S., power failures here going out. Blackouts more common, heat-related illness more dangerous. The power system may be resilient, but it still has many vulnerabilities. Let me know down below in the comment section.
Okay, so we see a lot of the things that's going on, the chaos building over here just as well. Those other countries in the same predicament. Then all of a sudden, you wake up one morning, it's in collapse. So we see U.S. is heading in the same direction. Okay. With the help of these other countries, China and Russia and the BRICS countries, because they egging it on. Okay, so we're gonna open it up for some Q&A, questions, comments. Anybody got anything they want to shine a light on, talk about? Okay, yeah. So you've been hearing me say, somebody got something?
Shalom. I was just going to say no, sir, not at this time.
Okay. Yeah, you've been hearing me talk about, you know, the 4 beasts, and that the 4 beasts is the beast system. I want to listen to a little bit of this. All this right here is signs where, you know, we at the end. Because, you know, after everything they've done, when it comes to hooking the scriptures and all that, and JC, shouldn't be having nobody talking like this. You know what I'm saying? 2,500 years later, but it was prophesied it would.
Join the 6 million.
Okay, so, give me a minute.
Being the beast. So you can, there's one thing for you to say, oh yeah, Davon, you and Steve, you know, you guys are anti.
Yeah, you want to check these guys out. It's the church is the beast. That's the name of the
Welcome back. This is another episode of the Exodus Project. I'm your host, Steve Eisenhower, and I'm joined with my good friend, Davon Mays from Closet Torah.
How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good.
And after quite a hiatus, we are going to begin the finale of The Beast. Culminate this series we've been talking about for the last few months. But before we get started, everyone, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, give Davon and I a big thumbs up, and check the description for any resources you may need. Share this week. We can get going. The Beast, Clouds of Torah and Exodus Project presentation, the finale, the culmination, right?
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground. If y'all go through those videos, you're gonna get some good nuggets in there.
A lot of this is going to be reviewed, but we do have some new stuff in here as well. So let's get down to it. So Daniel's Christian warning.
Daniel 7:25. He shall speak words against the Most High. He shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change the times and the law. They shall be given into his hand for a time, and half a time. Daniel tells us what the beast will do. Who changed times and laws? The church.
Whose calendar does the majority of the world follow?
Yeah, it's the Gregorian calendar. The thing with this is there's nothing to argue about. I don't have to argue who changed it. Everybody knows the Christians reset the calendar to fit Jesus' birthday or birth. Like that's not. Why do we say BC? You know what I mean? Like that's nothing to argue about. So you can deny it or ignore it, but the fact is, the beast that was spoken of that's going to change the times and laws is the church.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's too simple.
Very simple. So, and even if we want to go a step further, tampering with the law, Hebrews 7:12, there's a change of the law. Hebrews 7:18, commandments weak and useless. Like, come on, who's playing with the Torah here?
Yeah, I mean, it's written, it's all over the place.
Yeah,
the whole New Testament, it's all over the place. And it wasn't really until the church took power as the ruling entity over really the whole Western world that you have these calendars and times and months and days being changed, right? So it's all right there. Just open up a history book.
Yeah, I have a 4-lecture series. Daniel warned us about Christianity. And break it all down, give you all the references you need.
So this one's going to be a different beast.
Rome has morphed over time from the pagan empire to the Jewish Christians, who were like the first Christians, Orthodox Christianity, and now today, in our days, Republican and Democratic Christians, which they have a Christian base, but not so religious,
right?
Or lenient,
I guess the Protestant Reformation Christianity as a whole would be a good way to put it, and even into Islam, Yeah. I mean, there's no way around. There's no two ways around it. Islam is a byproduct of Christianity. They believe in Jesus, not in the same magnitude as Christians do, but without Christianity, you have no Islam.
And in the Quran, it speaks about the Gospels. So yeah.
The Injil, it's called.
The Injil, exactly. So now Muslims aren't so thrilled about Paul.
No.
And not so thrilled about the whole Jesus being God thing, but overall, the acceptance of the New Testament is in the Quran overall. And that's one of the things about this last beast is that it's since it morphs, we even see it has a lot of friends too.
Making sure.
Psalm 83, the tents of Edom.
So go back to what I said earlier. I keep saying over and over again, when the scripture Daniel says the 4 beasts is diverse, So it's the same thing as marked. When you write it divided. So this 4 beasts is diverse from the first 3, from the Babylonians and the Median Persians and the Greeks. The 4 beasts diverse from them. And you see it right here. It was a pagan empire just like the other ones at first. And because of Esau is the 4 beasts, then he reverted back to the information and the knowledge he got from Abraham and put a twist on it. That's how you get Christianity. And that's what it morphed into what it is today because of the conversion when it changed over from being a pagan empire to the Holy Roman Empire.
Stretch out. Put it like that. Read Psalm 83 for the reference to that.
Who is the beast?
After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, terrifying and dreadful and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it.
See that?
And it had 10 horns.
10 horns.
So we know there's many, many, many different interpretations of this. So many different commentaries on this. So we're not going to go into trying to break down this verse because we kind of covered this in the past videos, and I'm sure you got your own version. But the point is this: Romans 13:1, let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God. Now this is Paul talking.
Yep.
So whatever this beast is, Paul said you had to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, put that in perspective. If it's a dreadful beast that's going to devour and break in pieces and stamp with his feet, it's exceedingly strong and dreadful. But Paul says, yeah, everybody, we're going to be subject to that. And if you don't, you're not listening to God. Read all of Romans 13 if you think I'm making that up. And guess what? I'm reading it out the book of Romans.
Exactly.
How ironic.
Yeah, no kidding. Seriously though, I mean, it's like over and over, it just tells on itself.
It does. It's right in your face, hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
So, to follow up on that, if you refuse the mark, you're rebelling against the beast, aka the church. So all those talking about the mark of the beast, okay. Well, if the beast is to be obeyed, then what's your choices here? Why have so many Christians written about Rome being the beast? So you can, it's one thing for you to say, oh yeah, Devon, you and Steve, you guys are anti-New Testament, anti-missionary. Okay. What about the Christians that say Rome is the beast?
Yeah, early Christians.
Very early Christians, right? Revelation 13:4, and they worship the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worship the beast, saying, who is like the beast and who can fight against it? Now, let's go into the history. Who has caused more destruction on earth in comparison to Christianity since its inception, right? Since Rome basically adopted Christianity, because the early Christians really didn't have no power. But once Rome got a hold of it.
And let's think about Rome prior to when Christianity took over it. What army stood against Rome?
Right.
Rome took over the entire known world.
Yes, literally. Right. I mean, it really was a beast to the nations. I mean, if we just want to just deal with Israel, first they took over, not going to say first, but when they took over Israel, we see what they did to them. They destroyed it and exiled the people. Mm-hmm. We know they went all over the place, right? Look at an ancient map and see where Rome put its feet. So with that being said, let's look up some other things that they've done. Look up the law of discovery. What about the Inquisitions, the Crusades, Holocaust? Was Hitler a Christian? Look this up, like for reals, look this up. Exile of England, nuclear bombs, 30 Years' War, the KKK. The KKK are, supposedly Christians. Well, what did they do? Or what are they responsible for? What are they doing? Because they still exist.
Yeah, think about where their highest densities are in the Bible Belt, right?
Think about that. In the Bible Belt.
Isn't that crazy to think about? Burning crosses on people's front yards? Like, in the Bible Belt.
In the Bible Belt. So, when we talk about Rome morphing into Christianity and coming up with all these things, this is not, opinionated.
Sure.
Look up everything that's on the screen.
I don't mean to cut you off. What about Manifest Destiny?
Right.
The white man believed it was their God-given right to kill the natives.
So, anybody know what that is? Manifest Destiny?
No.
That's Manifest Destiny is that they got the right to rule, and they got a lot of the things they done. That's why they had, like I said, they had these literary geniuses, which is what Sir Francis Bacon is. They had him to come in and hoodwink old texts and all this type of stuff, like Philo and Josephus, but also artists like Leonardo da Vinci and all them. So they had this, if I'm not mistaken, it was Leonardo da Vinci, but he had this big, huge picture that was painted of this red-headed lady got this book in her hand, and she in the air with all, when the West came and the people came in the West, came here from Europe, and then they ended up the West. So how the West was won, got these wagons coming, but up over the wagons on the picture is this white lady with red hair, like, that's where wisdom come from. That's what a concept of wisdom being a woman, but she up there floating in front of them. She the one guiding them. She the one, just like the Lord of hosts looking over Israel, she the one controlling the destiny of the European people, or the Caucasians. But like I said, she got red hair. Everybody gets to, nobody focusing on that. Like, then you go back, like I was saying, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but when you go look at Google Sir Francis Bacon, you got fire red hair. Them pictures ain't some bogus picture they just painted of him, or bogus photo they got him. That's how he looked. And then so we go back. Esau, when he was born, he got red hair. Just recently, this giant that showed up over there in Afghanistan with red hair. Nobody focusing in on that, but that's huge. It's like I said, like these guys out here, it's amazing. Because look at, nobody ain't looking at, nobody looks at history and at the scriptures like this. You know what I'm saying? Because we've been so brainwashed. Nobody gonna say that the Christianity, the church is the beast. Come on. Somebody tipped them off. Okay.
United States.
Right, which fed the law of discovery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So look
a white boy at that
on the screen and see who's behind it. This is, it's not me just giving you my opinion. Look it
Sure.
up.
And I don't want any comments of people attacking Dave Blunt on my channel because he's a person of color. I'm a white man, and I am in total agreement with everything he's saying. Right?
And it's just
manifest, like I don't agree with Manifest Destiny. I don't agree with the KKK. I don't agree with any of these things.
Get you an Encyclopedia Britannica and look it up.
Exactly. That's all you gotta do.
So yeah.
And the slave trade. Think about the slave trade itself. It was Spain that was really the top dog and all that.
Yeah, that's and see, the thing is, some things are just they're so normalized now, as if slavery is just a part of history. But who were the people that were ruling? What did they believe in? Look up the good ship Jesus. Who was on that boat with Jesus' name on it? Look it up. You know, this is
coming
this
after
is
him
not
too
us
early, Dave.
attacking Christianity. This is just telling the historical record here.
History. Just is what it is.
Yeah, who's like the beast and who can fight against it? Okay. Who is like the beast and who can fight against it?
Image control. Because what was supposed to happen didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Bar Kokhba. They thought he was the Messiah because he was beating the Romans. And when he failed, when he died, and didn't fulfill the prophecies, they said, oh, he's not the Messiah.
Sure.
So when you put Jesus next to Bar Kokhba, you ask a Christian, why don't you believe Bar Kokhba was the Messiah? Oh, well, the Romans killed him and he didn't fulfill the prophecies.
What's funny is,
really,
according to tradition, you know, Bar Kokhba actually has a better resume because according to tradition, he laid a few foundational stones of the temple, the third temple. So he actually has a better resume than Jesus.
Well, all they're going to say is, all I ever hear, ever, and I'm going to say that ever hear, is it doesn't matter who got resurrected.
Right.
As if the resurrection just trumps everything. When what did that prove?
The son of the woman by Elijah. How about that one? Or the Elisha raised the dead too. So
right.
They're hundreds of years before JJ ever showed up. So who cares? And JJ himself resurrected some people. Does that mean I mean Lazarus? Maybe he's the Messiah.
Right, as if the resurrection proves anything. And let's say you was resurrected. You still didn't fulfill the prophecy, so you came back to life to do what?
Yeah,
nothing.
Means my man had two chances and messed up both times.
Well, it actually makes it worse.
It does.
In front of everybody. And Phineas had to come and give himself an eternal covenant by making it stop, which is another reason why the book of Hebrews lied and said that the priesthood is changed when Phineas got an eternal covenant.
Yep.
When he did that. When did that get broke? He didn't.
Because he was a man of peace. You think they would quote that?
He was a prince of peace. Interesting. So, like it says, New Testament polemics. So that's what you get. Paul versus Jesus.
We have a whole show on polemicized New Testament.
Right. So Paul versus Jesus. Luke 16:17. It is easier for heaven and earth to disappear than for the least stroke of a pen to drop out of the law. Ephesians 2:15. Having abolished in his flesh the enmity, that is the law of commandments contained in ordinances, so as to create in himself one new man from the two, thus making peace. Romans 6:14. For sin shall not have dominion over you. You are not under the law, but under grace. Isaiah 26. I believe this is verse 10.
Verse 9.
Verse 9 and 10. I'm sorry. The 9 is pretty little. With my soul I have desired you in the night. Yes, by my spirit within me I will seek you early. For when your judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world will learn righteousness. Let grace be shown to the wicked, yet he will not learn righteousness. In the land of uprightness he will deal unjustly and will not behold the majesty of the Lord.
Pretty cut and dry there, I'd say.
Pretty cut and dry. Jesus says the law will continue until heaven and earth pass. Paul says it's been abolished. And you're not under the law, but under grace. Isaiah says if you give grace to the wicked, he will not learn righteousness. And he will not behold the majesty of the Lord. And he will deal unjustly. He's going to be a bad person. You don't give grace to the wicked. Because we read in the Tanakh, God gave grace to the humble.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think James even says that.
Yeah. So yeah.
Paul and James didn't rock together. They didn't see eye to eye either. So if James says God gives grace to the humble, the Tanakh says God gives grace to the humble. You can't go with what Paul's saying here. Because he even doesn't, agree with Jesus And like we said earlier, the Christians are going to listen to Paul over Jesus because Paul's very convenient. Paul's Rabbi Manoah, which means Rabbi what's comfortable.
Okay. So any comments on it? On it, what you heard? So my reason for showing this is you notice that the revelations that come when you once you get in your head that who JC is, and you see him for who he is, that he's the block. He's the one. He's the blockage that's stopping the knowledge from increasing. And then just notice everybody that coming into that understanding how the scriptures start opening up for them. They might be off in certain areas, but you notice how much information started coming out or being manifested to a person once they get rid of that blockage. Because it's like tunnel vision. As long as you're dealing with JC, it's so much you don't see, you can't see. It's like what the way the direction they're going in right now. If you go to Revelations, you'll see that he's the beast. He says, it's two beasts, prophet, 666, and all that. You can see that's what Daniel was talking about. But they tricked it out. But the more and more you understand, the more and more you understand, you see what did happen. And it's not, you can't put no Band-Aid on. Any comment?
Shalom. Yesterday we were ending it with the beast, and we were speaking on. We had a conversation on the 666. So as I was thinking about that and about the mark, I think that mark is going to be with the chip for medical reasons, as they try to make the revelation play out.
Okay. Yeah. How you approach that situation is like he was. I was saying last night, and like these guys saying that the fourth beast is wrong, and the beast system is wrong. So whatever mark it is, it already happened. It's not some futuristic mark. It's in the Old Testament. It already didn't happen, because we know the 7-year period, the week of years, it was Antiochus. He went up against Egypt. He left, and he had a desire in his heart to go back to what Jacob prophesied. Let me see how they go. What Isaac prophesied over Jacob and Esau. He said that Jacob was going to live in the fat places of the earth, and he's going to be supplied from heaven with wine and corn and wine. But he says Esau is going to live in the fat places of the earth, but by his sword. So that's who Alexander and them is Macedonians, they Edomites, ruling over Japhet, over Greeks. So that's the two fat places of the earth, Jerusalem and Egypt. So he already had came in and conquered, and they was already had occupied Jerusalem. They already had Jerusalem occupied, but he had a desire in his heart to go to Egypt and subdue Egypt, the king of the south. That's what I'm saying. So the king of the south in Daniel chapter 11 and 12, all that to happen. You got these people, the Christians, waiting on the king of the south to show up. But Bartholomew is the king of the south. So, and he had 4 other generals, the king of the north, king of the east, king of the west. All that stuff that already manifested itself. So he went to Egypt and subdued the Ptolemaic dynasty. And then he turned back and came back to Jerusalem. That's when he, in the middle of the week, 3.5 years later, after he had left to go to Egypt, he came back. He had got a report. He came back and came up against Jerusalem, just like Daniel said, and sacked it. and he's bringing all the Israelites out. The abomination that make it desolate, the prince that's going to come. That's Antiochus. So like I was saying, if he already then came, the Antichrist, the mark already then came. We at the end of the four beasts. We at the end of the beast system. So the mark already been implemented. So it's not some futuristic mark that we waiting on. It already came. Matter of fact, if you go to this channel right here, well, the same video right here, the church is the beast, and the name of the channel is the Exodus Project. They have a video on there, and the guy is going back showing you how what that word mark meant back then. You can't look at how what they saying what mark mean now. You got to go back and look at how the ancient world saw that when they said mark, and it talks about a coin or a symbol, a sign, or an indention. You know, it's not it's Esau and these Bible colleges and seminaries they done set up got you thinking that, but no, it's all if Antichrist is, if Antiochus Epiphanes is Antichrist, then the mark, and he already came, the mark already came. Okay? Because we at the end of the four beasts, we see the four beasts coming apart as we speak. Any comments?
No, sir.
Shalom.
Yeah.
The number 666, I thought that had one time referred in the Old Testament to instruments that were being played in the temple.
No, it says it's the symbol of a man. And if you go back and do the research on it, even it says that the Antichrist, what they're expecting to come, he's the same person that 666 mark go with. So you go back and you look at the because the Greek Antiochus Epiphanes is a Macedonian Greek culture, and you go and look at that name and the numbers they're associated with the letters in Greek. The 666 is him, Antiochus Epiphanes. You just Google it and just Google it. Is Antiochus Epiphanes is the mark of 666 on Antiochus Epiphanes? Google it. And they break down the numbers and the symbols, the Greek symbols, because the way they had it, which they got it from the Egyptians, was they dealt with numbers and the geometry, and so they had certain numbers associated with each letter, and they had certain numbers added. And when you add all them numbers up, it comes up to 666. Antiochus Epiphanes' name, and then he also says that he gonna exalt himself above all gods. That's what his name means. He who is exalted. That's what his name means. So he fits all the scriptures. But you know, like I said, because of what they done with the scriptures and how they hoodwinked to person not gonna just find it out. Got to be Most High involved in it some kind of way, or he done inspired you to, or gave you the revelation, or you came across it by somebody else he inspired. You just ain't gonna figure that out. And so you say, what are you talking about? It's that time. Just like when they was in Egypt. He called Moses out. When the time came, he called Moses out. When it was time for him to go to Egypt, he had Joseph taken into Egypt. Knowing what's gonna happen, he already had set it up for Joseph to already be there. Like I said, with Moses, Samuel, when it came to David being, it's not a coincidence Samuel and David existed at the same time. Samuel was the one that was going to anoint David. So it's all a program, like we read in Daniel, where these Gabriel told him, me and your prince, Michael, the only one can look on this book. They already know what's gonna happen, and they being that they are holy angels and they making sure all this stuff happen, making sure that it come to pass. Yeah.
Yeah, Shalom. I'm kind of jumping. What about the 12 princes of Ishmael?
Yeah, what about them? I mean, what you want to know about them?
What is, I'm jumping again. What is their role and what's going on now?
Well, if you go back to it's in Jasher. Matter of fact, I'm gonna look it up and then I'm gonna read it tomorrow, but I'm just gonna paraphrase it right now. But if you go to the book of Jasher, when Abraham died, right, then all his sons came to his funeral. Ishmael came. By that time, the prophecy that the Lord host had gave him, his mama, that he was gonna have 12 princes, he had already it came to pass. Esau had his sons, Jacob had his sons. Well, when they got there, but it's just right before Abraham died. He gave all of them he gave them gifts. He gave Ishmael gifts. He gave Esau. He gave all them gifts, but to Isaac, he gave Isaac everything, all that he owned. So when they left from there, once they left from when they left from Abraham's funeral, it says that Ishmael and the sons of Kekuk. Remember Abraham died? I mean, Sarah died. Abraham got married again, right? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Abraham died, then he married his other woman, Kekuk. Then he had a bunch of sons, the Midianites and all them. Well, when they left from Abraham's funeral, they went back and they the mingled people of the Middle East. That's Arabs and the children of Kekuk all mingled together. That's them that's over there now. They intermingled. That's where the name Arab come from.
Okay, yes, sir. I've been going back through Genesis, so I'm kind of behind everything, but thank you so much.
Yeah, it's in Jasher. Like I say, I'll get the scriptures tomorrow. I'll read them when we get to the Q&A.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, all right. Anybody else got anything? Okay, yeah. So I said that what I'm gonna be doing tomorrow for the morning Shabbat and the evening Shabbat, I'm gonna be dealing with Sir Francis Bacon, because I got tuned in on some stuff over at the first of the week, so I just waited to make a whole day out of it, a couple of classes out of it, to put it all together, because it's shit, it took me 30-some years to put this together. So anyway, I'm just gonna start tonight, just to just give you a background information on Sir Francis Bacon. First of all, I'm gonna ask anybody know who that is.
William Shakespeare.
Okay. You got any more information? I guess we can go with that. We can go with that. William Shakespeare was a literary genius, right?
Right.
Yeah, he's a playwright. He's a literary genius. So he's the one that King James got to edit and print the first King James Bible. Sir Francis Bacon was the one that did that. That's why it come off the way it do, because he was a literary genius, just like I said, Josephus was, and Philo of Alexandria and Pliny the Elder. They was all at the Library of Alexandria. They the ones, the orchestrators of the New Testament, the Gospels, and all that. But Sir Francis Bacon, it already was concocted by these men that was linguists and all that. But Sir Francis Bacon got hold to it, and he the one put the nail in the coffin when he came with the King James. like I said, that's the reason why we don't know that Melchizedek is a title. He didn't twist it all around and make it into a person. I mean, into a person name or a character, but it's a title. God, Lord. He using all that. That's a literary genius that did that. And you're making everything vague. So when you see Lord, that Christians, all Christians think that's Jesus Christ. I mean, think that's Yahweh. But it ain't none of Yahweh. But they got it where it's like I was showing you the other night. They're gonna make they're gonna say the Lord came for ancient of days with woolly hair and you know hair like lamb's wool, white like lamb's wool, and make you think that's Yahweh. But when you go to Ezekiel chapter 1, Yahweh don't have no wool. No, he's a silhouette of a man, but he's pure. He's shaped like a man, but he's consuming fire. He can't have no flesh or none of the stuff we got on us, because he's pure. That's where all the angels, these 7 angels came from. He's pure fire. You don't need no skin on him. He made these angels to be able to deal with us. That's why we look like them. But he don't need no flesh or no woolly hair on his head. So he didn't trick you off right there by making you think that's Yahweh. So when you get to Daniel, you think that's Yahweh, but it ain't Yahweh. And so I was something I had read the other night. I didn't get a chance to expound on it, but I was reading in Daniel in the book of Ezekiel where it said that Enoch was taken up and he came to this temple, because the temple that's in heaven is Yahweh temple. The temple that's in Jerusalem is for the Lord of hosts. So he's telling you that when Ezekiel was taken up and he found himself in front of the temple, he described it. And he said it was fire all around it, pure flames of fire all around it, going all inside of it. But only those 7 angels can go in there. So why? Because they made it out of the same fire. The same fire that Yahweh made out of, they made out of it. But the point was that he tells you, he said he saw these 7 angels going in and out of there, clothed in white raiment. So go to Daniel chapter 10. When he saw this being, Daniel described this being. He said he had a robe on and he was girded about his waist with a golden girdle, gold from Upaz. So that's not Yahweh. It's so many ways to decipher that, but that's one of them. So we know it ain't Yahweh, but through his trickery and through his skill with writing, he got you thinking that that's Yahweh. They didn't trick the scriptures off. He had, first of all, they concocted JC, then they went and got him and other men like him to write out the Lord of hosts and write JC in and put him in that place. But they did it, like he said, just like the serpent, it was cunning. And what's that word in Genesis? Crafty. Yeah. So anyway, this guy plays. I found out, like I said, it's been 30-something years, and I found out the missing pieces came over the last 4 or 5 days. But come to find out that so from when you look at the picture, you can Google it when you get a chance. You got red hair, fire red hair. Like I said, these pictures these not no accident. These actual pictures is actually how he looked. And then you find out that Julius Caesar had red hair. Then you find out Esau was born with red hair. There's a whole nother story going on that we ain't focusing on. We've been hooked, just like we was hoodwinked away from the Lord of hosts. We was hoodwinked from seeing all this. So there's something going on with the red hair, because he tells you that at Mount Seir, it was giants at Mount Seir, they had red hair. Esau born, he got red hair. Hell, we know we the Israelites, we ain't got no red hair, no stringy red hair. So it's somebody lying somewhere. Somebody trick you off. So anyway, Sir Francis Bacon is tied to the people that's over in Great Britain right now. that's ruling. Queen Elizabeth now. He's a bastard son of Queen Elizabeth. So like I said before, so now go to what I showed you with Harry. You think it's a coincidence? JC got 5 red hair. So now we got this dude floating around right now in these last days, Harry. 5 red hair. He a bastard. Cause Charles ain't none of his daddy. And then they got this kid on all these murals in the Denver Museum with 5 red hair standing on the square, which is you know, witchcraft and sorcery. That's what Freemasonry is. The lower levels, you tricked off with the lower levels, but the high epsilon, the 30, 31, 32, 33 degrees, that's witchcraft. That's the same people that Nebuchadnezzar had in front of him when he went and got them. When the Most High sent the dream to him. They were sorcerers. That's all the fake Freemasonry is, the high ranks. They're dealing with demons, knowing how to summon demons and all that. So yeah, so they got in the Denver Museum, they got this boy standing on the square with red hair. Then you go to the Bank of America, they got this big old, I got videos on this, so you want to go look at them. But they got this boy standing on the square in Bank of America, this big old mural in the Bank of America headquarters, standing on the square with 5 red hair. All that's it's not a coincidence. Dracula got 5 red hair. Just go back. They've been putting this over your head because you wasn't zeroed in on it, but go back to and watch the movie Grand Stoke Dracula. That was a blockbuster when it came out. They put a whole bunch of research in that and a whole bunch of you know, special effects in it. So he got 5 red hair. He can shapeshift. You know, he can turn into a fog and come under your door. He can turn into a bat, shapeshift into a bat, shapeshift into a wolf, shapeshift into this big old grotesque beast that the Arabs call Dajjal. Red hair, 5 red hair, blue eyes, piercing blue eyes. So, come on. But we, you know, not wasn't being able to be connected. So anyway, here we go at the end of this story right here, and that's what Sir Francis Bacon. When you Google him, just put in Sir Francis Bacon, then hit images. Got 5 red hair, and like I said, he's a bastard son of Queen Elizabeth, just like Hitler is. They all tied, they all the same people. We most I warned about. But anyway, so we're gonna play a couple of these things. I'm just, like I said, I'm just doing an introduction. I'm gonna go all the way in tomorrow. So, like I said, I got a problem with Job. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me give me a minute. Computer acting up. Anybody got any comments or questions or something while I'm trying to find it?
Enter via West 24th Street. North corridor, hurry! Coming through!
Okay, you didn't get it. So this Bacon, Sir Francis Bacon, he was the main person dealing with the New World, which nobody knows that, but he was the one. He was the architect. He was the one that framed all that when it came to the New World. Let me get it.
Occasion to think about where we are as a society and where we've been in the last several hundred years, because Francis Bacon was one of the great architects of the scientific revolution and of the technological society of which we to which we all belong. So I think in this literary work, this fable that he's constructed of the New Atlantis, we have a very subtle way of trying to consider the various factors that technology brings into play, including desire and politics, nationalism, imperialism, things that maybe difficulties that Bacon himself understood, maybe not. In any case, he's given us the occasion to try to grapple with them as we must now. Because I think one thing the environmentalist movement has done for us is to try to get us to see that there are difficulties in the kind of approach that the Western world has taken to the natural world in the last several hundred years. So this is a great entree to that great conversation about how we should live in a technological age. So Bacon was born in 1561 and he died in 1626. He was the child of a second marriage of Sir Francis Bacon, who was at one point the second most powerful counselor to the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth. Unfortunately, his father died before he, who was the sixth of his sons, the last of his sons, could have his estate settled upon him. So Francis was not left with any means to support himself, really. He had enrolled at Cambridge, it was Trinity College in Cambridge when he was 13 or something like that, and studied the late scholastic method there that was still being taught, and he was not happy with the scholastic method that was given to him. So Aristotle became a symbol for him of what was holding back the human race from developing its productive capacities, or actually, in fact, coming to understand what we could understand with the power of the human mind. He went on to study law at the Inns of Court, Gray's Inn, and he became a very, because of his natural gifts, he was a very good lawyer. He would eventually come to serve the Commonwealth as an unappointed counselor, which was one of the things that if you were bright, you did in the kingdom. You offered advice to the monarch, which may or may not be taken up. Eventually, he was made a parliamentarian, and at one point he opposed one of the tax increases that Queen Elizabeth wanted and suffered a great political setback after that. So he was not actually set back on course to rise politically until after the accession of King James in 1603. Eventually, his rise under King James was meteoric. He would end up being the Lord Chancellor of Britain, and that was in 1618. And he was, in fact, created a noble in 1621. Well, created Viscount St. Albans in 1621. Later that year, though, in one of his other roles that he was playing, he was a judge at Chancery, one of the appellate courts, and he had received gifts from two of the suitors in cases that he was presiding over. The cases went against those suitors, but because of the politics of Parliament at the time, who were against Lord Buckingham and King James, he was made to be the fall guy for a practice that was in fact not that uncommon. He was not paid as a judge. This was one of the transactions that occurred, but so he was made to be labeled a false holder of office, and so he fell from power completely, and that left him in basically the last 5 years of his life to concentrate on his literary and natural philosophical works. So that was the blessing. We've seen this pattern before. Dante went into exile and he wrote his Divine Comedy. Machiavelli lost power and could write his Prince, and Bacon was forced to become the prolific, well, he up until this point, he had been so active in politics and so active in the law that he had not been able to apply his mind in the way that he really wanted to, in the way that he was clearly gifted to concentrate on natural philosophy and advancing natural philosophy, which is the name that was used for what we call now science. So in 1626 is when he died. So that the next year is when the New Atlantis showed up as a kind of an appendix to this massive work, the Silvus Silvarum. Bacon was known as, or has been recognized as, a great literary stylist, one of the great shapers of the English language. And it is true that he's got a very elegant style and an elegant mind. What we see in the New Atlantis, I think, which is a strange little work of fiction. We have the whole thing in front of us. We know that it's structured by three large conversations, one with the governor of the stranger's house where the visitors are quarantined, one with a Jew, Joabin, and who describes the family practices of this society in Salem. And then the last is with one of the fathers of Salomon's house, which is this massive project of science fiction, technological enterprise. So this is the kind of wide context in which Bacon wants to have us consider technology as a project. We think about politics, we think about economics in that kind of basic sense of the law of the household, this marriage law, the celebration, this patriarchal, literally patriarchal celebration of the Tirsan, the head of a fat household that has come to produce 30 children. It's very enlightening, but it's also interesting. Why is this being talked about in a work that is ostensibly trying to argue for the advancement of science as a social institution? It was taken to be such in the years that followed. It was one of the inspirations for the Royal Society in Britain. So it was understood that Bacon's rhetorical advocacy for scientific work and for moving beyond what he thought of as the mere verbalism of the natural philosophy of the Middle Ages. So we've seen this in several authors, and we'll continue to in this early modern period, trying to understand the shift from the scholastic method in a decadent form, this kind of use of Aristotle, who was himself a great natural philosopher who actually did a lot of experiments. But by the time we get to the 1500s and 1600s, that scholasticism, which was still being taught in the schools, did not have the experimental habit anymore. So if you thought that what it takes to make human beings better off, and as it's often quoted, right, that the relief of man's estate is with Bacon's great concern, and it is, but the whole quote is very important. He says, knowledge is the rich storehouse for the glory of the Creator and the relief of man's estate. And I think one of the most striking things about this work is that you do find an immense Christian piety. Now, I think we need to discuss how odd this Christian piety is, starting from how the island of Ben Salem is evangelized. But I think it's quite clearly sincere. So there are many modern conservatives who like to trash Descartes and Bacon and others for giving us modernity. I think that's problematic in all kinds of ways, including the fact that we're all beneficiaries of modernity. But so it's one thing to say technology has dehumanized us in many ways. It's another thing to say technology is a bad project, which is, of course, a foolish thing to say. So we have to distinguish. We have to say, when we ask the question, how should we live in terms of the technological era that we find ourselves in, we have to distinguish between the things that are both humanizing about technology. He isn't anti-religious, so one technological problem we've got now is...
So, break that down. Bacon, this work, he was a literary genius, right? So these are more or less like what you would call fiction. He wrote fiction stories. So this one story he was mentioning about this so-called island. He's talking about North America, North and South America, and he envisioned everything that's going on in America now. He envisioned it. So he was the driving force behind. Remember what these Edomites was, they controlling Spain. They was cast out of Jerusalem in 70 AD, not Israel. They was cast out and they was sent to Spain. Herod's was sent to Spain. So he's the one behind, the driving force behind the Nina Pina and Santa Marina. He the one was pushing the issue about the new Atlantis. Yeah, Edomite. So when you understand, when I read that they got curses on them, which is in Ezekiel 35, that the sword was gonna follow them. That's what the Holocaust was about. The sword is following them everywhere. So they was being kicked out because of their usury. Most High says Abraham taught Isaac and Ishmael, and he taught them, and Jacob and Esau taught them how not to use usury. But Esau then turned around and spiterized it. He in all these European countries tricking these people, like they're doing now with the banking system. And next thing you know, they had all their wealth by putting interest on stuff. They end up with all the people wealth, so the people would figure it out and they would cast them out of their country. And so they got to the point where they had nowhere else to go. So they was looking for a place to go. Like Israel. They remember that when they was in Israel, they wanted a place like that. Well, this Bacon came up with it in his mind because of the mind that he had. This new Atlantis, which is New Jerusalem. Some people call it New Atlantis, but Jews call it New Jerusalem. So when they got over here, that's where all the names coming from. All these places people over in the Midwest and all, they talking about the names of those places over there got same names as the names in Israel. That's because of him. What he was doing. They came over here naming the same places from where they got kicked out of. New Jerusalem. They wanted a new. They knew they couldn't go back at that time to that land where they came from. So they had these aspirations to go to a homeland of their own, where they won't be persecuted. They're trying to outrun the curses. That's in Ezekiel 35. So that's how they ended up over here, North South America. 13 colonies. That's how they was already here. They was already here before the 13. They part of the 13 colonies. That's why Washington went to them when they got in trouble with his army. He needed money. He went to the Jews. They was already here. Okay.
Right.
Somebody
So yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So saying so Columbus supposedly was over here in like 1492 or something, right?
Right.
So by the time Shakespeare was pretty much at his peak, so that middle passage or that traveling between Europe and America was probably the hottest thing smoking right then and there during his time. Right?
Right.
So for him to,
yeah. So based on that, just to put a plug in there, because a lot of people don't know that, they need to know it, is that when it says, I was reading it earlier, it says that the 4 beasts is more diverse from the other 3. So the Jew, the Edomite, he well traveled. He well traveled. That's why the 4 beasts is diverse. He knows that the Babylonians rose and fell in the same location, same geographic location, and then the Medes and Persian kings rose and fell in the same. So he looking at it, he well traveled. He all over the place. So he knows he came up with a plan where he knows it's gonna last for so long. What goes up gonna come back down. But before it start coming down, he gonna pack his bags and go somewhere else. That's the reason why the fourth beast is diverse, because it relocates.
Right.
Right. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So that's what I mean. So even during that time, for when the Dark Ages was ending somewhere around the 1500s, and the books, these books was not, you know what I'm saying, in the hands of these people at that time. Whatever he was writing was, you know, it was definitely something that they was going to believe. However, you know, his mannerisms of writing it, i.e. that Shakespearean English with the thou arts and all of that, it was still it was like listening to Michael Jackson perform to these people at that time.
Exactly.
You know.
And then there's an inner circle too. It wasn't the printing press and all that ain't came. So it was, like I said, when you understand it, it's amongst the Jews. That knowledge is circling around amongst these Jews. Everybody ain't have it. Everybody wouldn't have access to them. I mean, even all they lie to us and tell us that all that information and those scrolls that was in the Alexandria got burned up, but no, they didn't get burned up. That's the last thing they did was burn it up. They burnt the library up to make the people think that the information in those scrolls was burned up, but they still had those scrolls. So that knowledge was being circulated amongst them. That's what Martin Luther was talking about. You know, they was circling, they had all that information, even to the day.
Right. That's that esoteric that they call it. That's what they call it.
Right. And that's tied to witchcraft and summoning demons and all that. That's where the esoteric come from. Right. So anyway, he's like I said, he's the father. He's the one behind the scenes. Notice how the guy was telling you how his protege or his mentor was Aristotle. So Aristotle, one of the fathers of philosophy. Like what Job doing in the book of Job, philosophizing.
But hold up. So hold up, London. So this is why I'm saying this is interesting for us to pay attention. So Aristotle was around at the time of Alexander.
Yeah, Aristotle, the one who Alexander.
Yeah.
He was Alexander's teacher.
So if we talking 1500 plus, so we got to go back 1500 years, and then what is it, Leonard? Like another 150 another 150 or so, 200 before Antiochus came. So we talking at least another 250 years when Alexander was on the scene. Then, so go back to so we talking over 17 plus 100 years, right?
Exactly. Right.
So that's who he was studying. Somebody 1700 years before his time.
Right. And that knowledge is being passed on. Right. So it was being passed on to one man. Yeah. So when by the time we get to, and then like I said, just like the four beasts are diverse, the four beasts diverse because of the orchestrator of the four beasts is diverse. We see he didn't start in England, in Great Britain. That ain't his origins. His origins is in Mount Seir. So like I said before, he well traveled. He didn't pick game on, you know, just like Newton. Newton is an Edomite. He realized what goes up come back down. So that's what's making the four beasts diverse. You know, it might rise right here, but I can't sit here because it's gonna go down right here. When it start going down, I'm gonna relocate it. I got a blueprint. I'm gonna take it somewhere else. So that's what you see over with the French, with Charlemagne. Then from there it bounced to Great Britain, and then from Great Britain they came here to America. It's been bouncing all over the place. I mean, then the Byzantine Empire has been relocated.
Right, Byzantine. Right. Yep.
But it's all Esau, and he getting more and more wiser and slicker the more and more every time he jumped. Yeah. So yeah, yeah, I'm playing a little more of this, just a little bit. I was trying to say it for tomorrow, man, but let me get this little bit right here, and then we'll close out. That's it, my computer acting a donkey. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so like I said before, man, you get a chance, opportunity. I mean, you can just do it on your own time. Google them names, and they got images of these people. Every one of them, even in the movies in Hollywood, no, they always got the red head, flowing red head. They put a serious emphasis on that, but we sleeping on it. Here we go. Let me get it. Okay, let's see. I think this it right here. She was okay. Okay.
Bacon had two main faults to find with the learning of his day. The first had to do with its bondage to the past. In this respect, he considered Renaissance humanists and Protestant theologians worse offenders than the schoolmen, because they gave far too much attention to the ancient languages, to style and phrase, to the correction and imitation of texts. In his opinion,
he had a problem with the ancient language. Okay.
It was time for scholars to wake up to the age in which they were living. No longer need Europeans feel overawed by the achievements of Greece and Rome. What we call antiquity was in fact the youth of the world. These times are the ancient times, when the world is ancient, and not those which we account ancient by a computation backward from ourselves. The second main fault was in mistaking the goal or purpose of knowledge. Too great precedence had, he thought, been given to intellectual activity and not enough to practical investigations. Bacon pleaded for scholars to lay aside vain speculations and to turn to the contemplation of nature and the observation of experience. Contemplation, he said, should ever be conjoined with action and should be pursued not out of mere intellectual curiosity or for the honor or gain of the scholar, but for its utility to civil society. In the second and more substantial part of the advancement of learning, Bacon turned his attention from the scholars to the matter of their scholarship. His purpose was to point out areas of study that had not received sufficient attention, and in passing to note those that had not been neglected. Among the latter he placed mathematics and physics, grammar and eloquence, ancient and ecclesiastical history. This was not to say that he considered them in a satisfactory condition. I am not now, he noted, in hand with censures, but with omissions. Of physics, for example, which he did not report as deficient, he nevertheless noted, in what truth or perfection its branches are handled, I make not now any judgment, but they are parts of knowledge not deserted by the labor of men. Bacon's originality appears in the number of new sciences which he envisioned a place for, and the gaps he saw in the old ones. For example, he urged that modern history should be studied with the same zeal as ancient, and he called for a new science that would study human races in connection with climate, geography, and natural resources. There was need for a science of education and for books on practical morals, which would deal with ways of improving the mind and cultivating virtue. A history of mechanics and inventions was needed to parallel the history of thought, and handbooks were needed in the fields of business and diplomacy, comparable in form of writing to Machiavelli's works on government. Theology might seem to be overcultivated, but Bacon suggested two new areas, one dealing with the limits of human reason and speculating about divine things, the other defining the latitude which ought to be allowed for theological differences. Medicine, Bacon thought, was in a particularly deficient way, being a science which hath been more professed than labored, and yet more labored than advanced, the labor having been, in my judgment, rather in a circle than in progression.
Okay, so sound like Joe to me. But anybody have any comments? You want to watch all that? It's Francis Bacon's Advancement in Learning. It's like 10 minutes. So anybody got any comments or anything before we go? I just wanted to jump it off right here tonight and go all the way in the paint tomorrow morning and tomorrow evening, because there's a whole lot more to it than just that. I was just giving you a little refresher for tomorrow. So you can, if you want to, in between now and in the morning, you want to check in on him and check him out or whatever, that'll help the class out. Everybody good? Don't anybody have anything? Okay, I'm gonna say shalom.
Thank you.
I'll see everybody in the morning at 10 o'clock. Shalom.